Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll call this meeting in order at 9:07 a.m. Can I get
District 1 Supervisor Alejo.
Javier here. Javier, yeah, Supervisor, that'll be in trickling in pretty soon.
District 2 Supervisor Church.
Here.
District 3 Supervisor Lopez.
Here.
District 4 Supervisor Askew.
Here, present.
District 5 Supervisor Adams.
here?
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Here.
City of Del Rey Oaks.
Here.
City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Greenfield. Here. City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina. City of Monterey. Here. City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas.
Here.
City of Sand City. City of Seaside. City of Soledad. AMDAC. Caltrans District 5. Here. Monterey Bay Air Resource District.
Here.
Monterey Regional Airport District. Monterey Salinas Transit.
Here.
City of Watsonville. CSUNB.
Here, online.
There, we do have a quorum.
Thank you so
Sure, we do
much.
have a quorum.
All right, will you join me in the pledge of allegiance? Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we'll go to public comments. Members of the public have 3 minutes to comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none in the room. I'll ask for Zoom. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on any item not on the agenda? I see Mr. Elder.
Sorry, I'm muted. Hello. I'm Scott Elder. I'm calling in from University of California, Berkeley. I've been working along with Margaret Crawford and the College of Environmental Design Urban Design Program with Craig Kaufman of the Salinas Valley Tourism and Visitor Bureau for the last few years on an idea for Salinas Valley heritage, agritourism, and winery related tourism events and moments in the valley. We're working with students right now with a grant from the Lau family to expand on that idea and create a meeting coming up on September 15th to exhibit a kind of family of ideas within the valley pertaining to those topics. And they are all linked together by an idea for a kind of river road recreation route bike trail. This is something that I know is aligned with the National Park Service Anza Trail and has at times been part of a proposed recreation route plan that TAMC has put out in the past. So this is just something that I've tried to be in contact with Christopher Lopez about just recently. And it's something that we're hoping to kind of expand upon and introduce in a little bit more designed and physical way in the near future. So I just wanted to get that on people's imaginations and in their brains. I don't know what more I can say about it for now. I'm not allowed to share screen, but that's the concept. And yeah, I hope to come down there and introduce it a little bit better in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Elder, and feel free to email any information regarding that meeting to TAMC so they can distribute it to our.
I'll do that. I've been in contact with Yannicka Strauss about that, and it's on her radar that's coming up.
Thank you so much. Is there
Thank
any
you.
other? Thank you. Any other members of the public who speak on any item not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none. We'll now go to the consent agenda. Any directors want to pull any items from the consent agenda? Yes.
3.41, I just have a question on.
3.41. what was the question?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, this innovative and traffic guarding strip contract, but I noticed, most of these are being done in various schools. And one of them is listed out in the Pajaro Park. And I know it's going to be done on the asphalt there, from what I understand. I'm just a little concerned about safety because that is a small asphalt strip through there, but parking and cars drive up and circle around. I'm just, has a place been identified on the asphalt, and is it really safe?
Actually, Ariana Green is our staff who's been working on that. She's not here right now, but it's not in the parking lot. It's in the playground area that those traffic gardens have been identified to be located.
In the playground, okay, because I noticed reading this, it says cleaning approximately 4,000 square. That's right, put one word together, square feet of existing asphalt with wire brooms or blowers. So I don't think the playground, there's any asphalt in the playground area.
I'll have to follow up with you on the specific location because I'm not familiar enough detail about Pajaro, but it's not the parking lot. I'm certain of that.
Thank you.
Any other items that want to be pulled? So any member of the public like to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Again, I'll ask any member of the public like to speak on any of the consent agenda items. Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board for action.
Move approval.
Second.
First with Potter, second with Lopez. All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
we can do that now, right? We don't have anyone on Zoom. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to item 4. Before we start this one, I do want to get concurrence from the board of moving item 5 to after item 7. And if there's no objection, any member of the public have any comments on moving that item? Hearing and seeing none, can I get a motion to move?
So move.
Second.
First with Lopez, second, was that you? No. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain, passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item 4, present the Transportation Agency Employee of the Quarter to Aaron Hernandez. Rod?
All right, thank you. Well, let me call Aaron up here. Where we go. I'm going to read the proclamation. Aaron, it hereby certifies that Aaron Hernandez, Transportation Planner, has been selected by his colleagues at the Transportation Agency for Monterey County as Employee of the Quarter for April 1st to June 30th, 2023. The agency employees recognize Aaron for his professionalism, his positive attitude, and his hard work on developing GIS tools for the US 101 and Safe Routes to School projects and creating maps for grant applications. Staff appreciates Aaron's assistance in the office transition to new agenda preparation software, Civic Clerk, and for upgrading our meeting hardware to the eMeet capsule. He also managed a complicated grant process with the Senior and Disabled Grant Program. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, it is our great pleasure to recognize Aaron Hernandez for his exemplary service. Thank you. It says Transportation Planner there. Aaron just had his annual review and he got promoted to Transportation Planner after his review.
San Ardo.
Represent.
The house.
Thank you. Any board members have any comments? Yes, Chris?
I just want to thank Aaron, just even beyond the work you do here, his heart is in our communities, and I think that makes the difference. For those who don't know, he also serves on our local water board in the community of San Ardo, which is not an easy task, recovering from those weather systems that did a significant amount of damage to our communities. So I want to thank you for your work, not just here, but beyond that, and for letting your heart lead you and the work you do for our community.
I concur with everything the supervisor just said. Every time I see you at events, it's always a smile, very welcoming. You represent TAMC very well. Any other members? Thank you so much, Aaron. Congratulations. right, so we'll move on to item number 6, Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway, California Avenue segment, final design and right of way. Monica?
Good morning. Okay, my name is Yana Strauss. I'm a transportation planner with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and today I will be presenting you the agenda item about the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway, California Avenue segment, final design and right-of-way contract. So I'll start with a background of the FORTAC project. I'll give you a little bit of detail on the California Avenue segment project, go over the timeline, and then we'll review the staff recommendation. So the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway is proposed as an approximately 28-mile continuous 12-foot wide paved bicycle and pedestrian trail with an open space buffer on both sides. The map to the right shows the entire route that is planned. The vision for FORTAG is that it facilitates active transportation, expanding our region's opportunities for traveling between home, work, and commercial areas by foot, bike, or wheelchair. So the first segment to be built is FORTAG Segment 1, Canyon Del Rey. This project is funded with Active Transportation Program, SB1 Local Partnership Formula, and Measure X funds. And the total project cost is $13.6 million. And construction is slated for fiscal year 22-23, or to begin fiscal year 22-23. The second segment to secure funding is the FORTAG Segment 2, which is Imjin Road to Jerry Smith Trailhead. This is funded with Federal Lands Access Program, or FLAP funds, and Measure X. The total project cost is $12.2 million, and construction is scheduled for fiscal year 26-27. So the segment we're talking about today is FORTAG Segment 3, California Avenue. Last year, 2022, we were awarded an $8.1 million Active Transportation Program Cycle 6 grant. The final design and right-of-way request for proposals was approved by the TAMC board previously this year in March. And GHD was selected for the contract negotiations in July of 2023. So this is a map of the Segment 3, California Avenue segment. The blue highlighted segment is the segment in question. And you may not be able to see from where you're sitting, but originally the segment was going to be from Patton Parkway down south to 5th, 8th Street Junction, and then north, it would head north through open space and connect to the FORTAG Segment 2, which is the flat funded segment. Through the Active Transportation Program grant process, we ended up adding sidewalk improvements north of Patton Parkway to Carmel Avenue, which would connect the Marina City Schools to the pathway. So highlighted here in green is the flat segment, the flat funded segment. And we just wanted to point out that these segments obviously connect directly to each other and will create a really wonderful recreational and commute opportunity for Marina residents, regional residents, and CSUMB students.
Yeah.
So the Segment 3, California Avenue, is a 1.4 mile, 12-foot paved multi-use path. Like I said before, there will be accessible sidewalk improvements north of Patton Parkway that connect the Marina schools to the multi-use path. A protected intersection at California Avenue and Imjin Parkway. And you can see a conceptual design in the top right corner of the screen. A bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing at Imjin Road connects to the tag segment 2. And then also part of this project is safe routes to school programming such as educational and group rides. So just to review the timeline, the TAMC board approved the final design and right-of-way request for proposals earlier this year in March. Today, I will be asking you to approve the contract.
Oh, yeah,
with-
yeah, no, I'm just listening in, they can't.
Yes.
Welcome, Dave.
So today I will be asking you to approve the contract with GHD to move forward with the final design and right-of-way phase of the project. We will begin that phase in September of this year, and then construction will begin May 2025 and end October 2026. So to review the staff recommendation, we are asking that you approve and authorize the executive director to execute a contract with GHD, subject to approval by agency counsel and Caltrans Independent Office of Audits and Investigations for an amount not to exceed $2.2,772,508, which includes a 10% contingency to provide final design and right-of-way certification services for the tag California Avenue segment for the period ending June 30th, 2026. Additionally, approve the use of the State Active Transportation Program and Regional Measure X funds to fund the project. And then finally, to authorize the executive director to take such other further actions as may be necessary to fulfill the intent of the contract, including approval of future modifications or amendments that do not significantly alter the scope of work or change the approved contract or amount. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Annika. Bring us to the board. Questions or comments from the board? Start with
I
Wendy.
just, you're just acknowledging like this has been a long time coming and TAMC has really been at the forefront of helping to keep things lined up and moving forward and on track. So thank you to TAMC staff for taking that on. This particular segment of trail, I think is especially important. We're opening up a 71 unit, 70 units of a Chispa low income housing project in East Garrison in January of next year. And there are significant parking limitations associated with that project. And so one of the ways in which we have limited MST access to that particular part of the community as well. This section of trail is going to represent a key connector for individuals who are living at East Garrison to safely, without a vehicle, access and get into the transportation hubs in Marina, the shopping, the schools. So all of these pieces, they all seem so, like a piece here and a piece there and a piece there, but it all really does come together in some pretty significant ways. And I'm really excited about what this section could look like, 3 to 5 years from now, given what's happening around it. So just thank you for all the work.
Yes, Barry.
Thank you. Thanks again for the presentation. And I agree with my colleague. We feel like we've been working on this for so long, and it's really delightful seeing it come to fruition. I was just curious, can you just tell me what the total length of the trail system is? I know you said segment 3 is 1.4 miles. I'm unclear what 2 or 1 is and what the total length is.
The total length of the other segments?
Everything all together, yeah.
Well, the full plan, tag plan is for 28 miles.
28, okay. Great. And then do you know what segment 2 and segment 1 are?
I don't off the top of my head.
That's okay. Thank you so much. Thanks. But we can get 28 miles.
Any other board members, questions or comments? I will take this to the public. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Ask any member of the public to speak on this item. Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board for action.
I'll move approval.
Second.
First with Wendy, second with Mary. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstaining. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to item number 7, approved program in a 10.538 million of the Regional Surface Transportation Program and Transportation Development Act 2% fund through 2023 competitive grants program of projects. And Annika, you're back up.
Back here. Okay, so today I will also be presenting to you the 2023 competitive grant program of projects. And I will be asking you to approve that program of projects. This is quite a long presentation that has lots of detail about the projects that we are recommending. And so I just wanted to let you know that the PowerPoint will be on the board meeting webpage after the meeting, if you'd like to look back at it. So I will start with a program overview that you all have heard before earlier this year in March. I will review the fund estimate, which you adopted in March of this year. And then I will review the projects that we are recommending for funding in both the competitive grant program and the quick build grant program. So as a reminder, the competitive grant program is funded with federal funds that are exchanged at the state level, which allows the funds to be more flexible. The fund sources include the Regional Surface Transportation Program and Transportation Development Act 2% programs. The fund sources and the TDA funds are specifically for bicycle and pedestrian projects. TAMC distributes these funds as part of its responsibilities as a regional transportation planning agency through a fair share and competitive grant program. To be eligible for funding, projects must meet the criteria in specific sections of the US Code and state constitution, but generally highway, local streets, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and some transit projects are eligible. The competitive grant program is distributed on a 3-year cycle, and the cycle we are talking about today is fiscal year 23-24 through 25-26. So TAMC is estimating 18.75 million over the next 3 years from the Regional Surface Transportation Program and the TDA 2% funds. An approved TAMC policy provides a set aside up to 10% of the annual RSTP funding for use by TAMC for eligible transportation projects and planning activities. For this cycle, the estimate is $1.8 million. Additionally, TAMC has the discretion to approve other one-time off-the-top set-asides for special projects. And for this cycle, the Salinas Rail project is receiving a 2.6 million set aside. Funds available for distribution to local agency includes 3.6 million through a fair share formula based on population and centerline miles. And so the total available funding for the competitive grant program is 10.75 million, with 1 million being distributed through the quick build project pilot program and 9.75 million distributed through the competitive grant program. So now I will review the competitive grant program. So we received 12 total applications and more than $22.7 million was requested. The application scores favored projects that improved regional routes with high traffic volumes, included bicycle and pedestrian facilities and safety enhancements, benefited disadvantaged communities and people with disabilities, projects that have already started environmental review and or design, and are sponsored by jurisdictions with a proven track record to deliver projects on time. So this is a table of the projects that we are recommending for funding and they are in ranked order. So the top ranked project was the US Highway 101 Broadway Street at San Antonio Drive Roundabout Improvement Project, sponsored by King City, with recommended funding $3.5 million. Next Highest rank was Del Monte Boulevard and Reservation Road intersection improvements sponsored by the city of Marina. And we are recommending $1.7 million for that project. Next is the MST countywide bus stop project. And we are recommending $425,000. The next up is West Street Road Diet and Complete Street Project sponsored by the city of Soledad. And we're recommending $2.75 million. And then finally, the Hardin Parkway Path and Safe Routes to School project in the city of Salinas. And we are recommending 1.5 million. And the funding recommendation does fully fund all of these projects. So this here is a map of the projects that we're recommending for funding, overlaid with the Justice 40 Initiative GIS layer. So we just wanted to show you here that 80% of the projects that we are recommending for funding are within a disadvantaged community and are distributed across the county. So a little bit of detail about each project that we're recommending. So the US Highway 101 Broadway Street at San Antonio Drive Roundabout Improvement Project. The total project cost is 3.9 million and we are recommending 3.5. This project is a roundabout at the US 101 Broadway Street and San Antonio Drive intersection. It would simplify the complex geometry, slow speeds, and eliminate left turn conflict points with the addition of pedestrian crosswalks, refuges, and sidewalks. It would provide a connection to the future San Antonio Trail project, which on this image you can see in the top left corner. And then it would also add class 2 bike lanes within the project limits. Next up is the Del Monte Boulevard and Reservation Road intersection improvements. Total project cost is 1.9 million and we're recommending 1.7 million. This project would enhance bike and pedestrian visibility and safety at crosswalks and add curb, bulb out, and refuge areas. It would shorten the bike and pedestrian crossing times with realigned crosswalks and ramps. It would increase bike and ped protection and separation from vehicles at the intersection conflict points. Increase bike and ped connectivity to transit stop, regional trail, commercial and municipal amenities for disadvantaged communities, and improve ADA compliance with audible pedestrian signals, leading pedestrian intervals, and new curb ramps. The MST countywide bus stop project, total project cost is $998,000 and we're recommending $425,000. This project, it would be 49 new ADA compliant bus stops countywide. The sites were identified through MST's Better Bus Network, the South County Planning Study, and public comments received at board meetings. It allows MST to transition its South County service to an individual city-focused service that will utilize a main trunk line, line 23, to connect the intracity circulator lines. And this service method will increase the frequency of service within these low-income communities. The West Street Road Diet and Complete Street project, the total project cost is 2.8 million and we are recommending 2.7 million. The project is a 4 to 2 lane road diet south of Gabalon Drive on West Street. And it would restripe as 2 travel lanes and a median. A double striped median from Gabalon Drive to North Street, and then a 2-way left turn lane from North Street to Front Street. There'd be a striped 6-foot bike lane with a 3-foot buffer, and then pedestrian crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon signal and upgraded curb ramps. So the final project we're recommending for funding is the Hardin Parkway Path and Safe Routes to School project. The total project cost is $15.5 million and we are recommending $1.5 million. This is a 4 to 2 lane road diet on Hardin Parkway with a 2-way separated and protected multi-use path, stormwater improvements, and accessible sidewalks, high visibility crosswalks and curb extensions between McKinnon Street to El Dorado Park, and a roundabout at Hardin Parkway and McKinnon Street. So now to review the quick build grant application of applications. 4 applications were submitted and more than $732,000 was requested. Application scores favored projects that use semi-permanent materials to test a concept that quickly addresses a safety need, continuously engages the community throughout the duration of the project, measures progress and performance, and provides a foundation for potential permanent infrastructure. So this is a list of the projects that we're recommending for funding. In ranked order again. So the top ranked project was the East Market Street Cycle Track Quick Build in the city of Salinas. And we are recommending $326,000 to that project. Next is the Madison Herman Larkin Traffic Circle in the city of Monterey, and we are recommending $119,000 for that project. And then finally, the Division Street Bike Lanes and Safe Routes to School crosswalk upgrades in King City, and we're recommending $117,000 to that project. Again, we have overlaid the applications with the Justice 40 Initiative GIS layer to demonstrate that 2 of the 3 projects recommended funding are within a disadvantaged community. So the East Market Street Cycle Track Quick Build project is the installation of a raised median where a striped buffer currently exists on East Market Street from Eucalyptus Drive to Williams Road. The raised median cycle tracks would serve as a buffer between on-street parking and the bike lanes, protecting bicyclists from the door zone of parked cars. Additionally, the raised median would prevent drivers from encroaching into or outright blocking the bike lane. Next is the Madison Herman Larkin Traffic Circle in the city of Monterey. The addition of a traffic circle at this intersection and striped medians with vertical elements will reduce vehicle speeds on the intersection approaches, reduce vehicle speeds through the intersection and at pedestrian crossings on the intersection departures, provide better visibility of pedestrians, and provide placemaking opportunity for Monterey High School students and neighbors, reminding drivers of the presence of pedestrians and student drivers. The last quick build project we're recommending for funding is the Division Street Bike Lanes and Safe Routes to School Crosswalk Upgrades project in King City. The project is on Division Street from Canal Street to First Street and at the intersections of Fairview, Division, and Pearl Russ. The project would reduce lane widths, provide high visibility crosswalks and curb ramps, and the project's improvements are anticipated to reduce collisions and near misses for motor vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. So as a reminder, the budget we're working with, we have a total of $9.75 million of competitive funds available. The competitive program funding recommendation is $9.975. So there's a balance of negative $225,500. The total quick build funds available is $1 million. The funding that we're recommending for the quick build program is $562,500. So there is a balance there of $437,500. So the total funding available is 10.75, and we are recommending a total of $10.5 million. So this slide I added yesterday as an update to you all. that we heard from Caltrans that $1.2 million of federal earmark repurposing funds are available. After consideration of the funding requirements, TAMC staff will be submitting a request to fund the Hardin Parkway Path and Safe Routes to School project to receive these funds. Should the request be approved, a total of $1.4 million would be returned to the RSTP reserve for future programming, and we would come back to the board to program those funds. So today, the staff recommendation is to approve the 2023 competitive grants program of projects and program $10.538 million of regional surface transportation program and TDA 2% funds to the program of projects before you today. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Board members, questions or comments? Any member of the public can speak on this item? Again, I'll ask, is there any member of the public who could speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board.
So I'd just like to comment, sort of as a board historian here, it's really refreshing to see that we've done this outreach. We've gone ahead and get consensus across the entire community as to what we should be doing. There was a time when we used to fight over these dollars, that it was Valley against the Peninsula. It's changed times there, and I'm really glad to see that. It's really refreshing that we can actually have staff do the necessary outreach to go ahead and get consensus. Consensus is what makes good government work. Pretty proud of this organization. I say we've come a long way, so thank you very much. Very impressive.
Any other members? Or do you want to make that in the form of
I'll
motion,
make the
Dave?
motion to approve, yes.
I'll second it just so we can cross that lettuce curve. How about
First with Dave, a second with Chris, all in favor? Against? Abstain? Thank you, everyone. It passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 5, which is the draft 2023 public participation plan. And this will be Teresa Wright and Heather Adams.
Hi, good morning, and thank you so much. It seems to be a natural follow-up to what Monica just said, because we're going to talk about public outreach. So I'm Teresa Wright, I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for TAMC, and the Association of Miami-Dade Area Governments, and that is responsible and are required by federal regulation to prepare and maintain a public participation plan for the Tri-County region. So we're talking about ourselves, Santa Cruz, San Benito County. This is a comprehensive document that guides regional planning agencies and local jurisdictions and the public participation process, and it's updated every 4 years. So today, Heather is joining me, and as Director of Planning, she's going to present the draft 2023 public participation plan to you. Then we're going to ask you to open a public hearing, receive public comments regarding the plan, and then close the public hearing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather, and thank you for your time. Heather, there you go. Great.
That was my last slide. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being accommodating with the agenda item. I was next door for an early morning Caltrans presentation. So let me just go back. Okay. So as Teresa mentioned, AMBAG in partnership with our 3 county partners, TAMC, as well as SCCRTC, the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, and the San Benito Council of Governments have worked together to prepare a joint public participation plan and go over a little bit about some background and why this is important to the work that we do. So the 2023 public participation plan, as Teresa mentioned, is a comprehensive document that guides our regional transportation agencies in the public participation process. The purpose is of the plan is to establish the process by which the public can participate in all of our transportation planning, programming, as you just heard, and project implementation. We do update this plan every 4 years. And it is required for all federally funded public involvement activities. That covers almost everything that AMBAG does, but it also in turn covers any work that TAMC may do that uses federal funds. So some of the key sections of the plan, it is, I brought a copy here. It is quite lengthy, but the link has been online. There's also a number of appendices. So I want to highlight some of the sections that are in the draft plan. There are the plan guiding principles, the requirements for public participation that we are required to do by statute, such as today's public hearing, how we incorporate limited English proficiency populations into the public participation plan process, the procedures and the development process for how we put this plan together, interested parties and public engagement, and then how we engage online and use visualization outreach strategies. As I mentioned, this is the required plan that guides us in all our involvement activities conducted by AMBAG. These strategies and techniques are not only used by us, but also the RTPAs for public involvement activities that use federal funds. If you are short on time, don't want to review the whole document, there's some key sections. Section 3 is the requirements and the strategies that explains what we're required to do and how we plan to meet those requirements. Section 5 lists the type of interested parties we engage with, as well as various strategies that we use. It could be a board meeting, it could be a technical advisory committee, and it could be a workshop. We have a wide variety. Appendix D is the list of stakeholders. We have a number of contact lists and key stakeholders at the regional level and at the county level, and we try to list those. A lot of comments that we get involve some community groups or interested parties that aren't listed in that. And so a lot of the comments we've had coming in are to update that and add new interested stakeholders. And then finally, Appendix G is the specific outreach strategies that we will be using for the 2015 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy Involvement Plan. In terms of key changes, we do update this plan every 4 years. So we're doing things a little bit differently in this plan. And so I'd like to emphasize some of the key changes from 2019. We included an added emphasis on equity as a guiding principle in our outreach plan to make sure we're targeting using appropriate strategies in different communities and making sure we're using it equitably. We also took advantage of what we learned during COVID. Obviously, our last plan, when we adopted it, COVID hit a few months later. And so a lot of our outreach strategy was no longer in person, it was virtually. And so we want to take advantage of things that we learned and things that went really well during COVID with those public participation efforts, and including those technology and best practices in the plan moving forward. Earlier this year, we conducted a survey asking folks how they wanted to be involved, what should we look at as we're looking at our outreach process. We asked a lot of questions of just what platform works best, what method works best. Do you like in person? Do you like hybrid? Do you want virtual only? What time of day or what day works best? Where? Do you want it to be a standing meeting or do you want it to be a pop-up somewhere? And so we use that feedback to help address appropriate strategies to include in the plan as we're trying to engage the public. So in terms of next steps, this plan has actually been out for all summer for public review. This is our final public hearing. The public comment period began on June 14th when the AMBAG board released it for public review and concludes later today. We've been making presentations to committees and working groups all summer, receiving feedback and input from those committees. And we also held a public hearing at the AMBAG board a couple weeks ago. In terms of the regional agencies and their involvement, same public comment period, but we've also been holding public hearings at each of the RTPAs. So today at TAMC, if TAMC chooses to adopt this plan, it will come back at a future meeting as final, and the board will be asked to approve it for your use in meeting that federal requirement for any federal funds for projects that have federal funds. We have gotten a lot of comments already. Most of our comments do not come from public hearings. So this is just one of the requirements that we're mandated to do. But we've been getting comments emailed to us all summer, as well as at those working group meetings and so as I mentioned, most of the comments have been coming in via email. We are compiling those comments, we'll be logging them, and we'll be responding to them as and how we're going to indicate incorporating them into the final plan. And we'll be modifying the draft plan as appropriate to make sure we address those comments. And so today, the TAMC board is asked to have a public hearing to allow the public to provide comments on the draft plan, as well as any board members who have comments that they'd like to provide them today. And we'll be taking those comments back and incorporating them into the development of a final plan, which you'll see at a fall meeting. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Heather. Before I go to the board, I did a question. TAMC has done some public meetings regarding, what was the name of that? Community-based funding decisions.
Participatory budgeting.
Participatory budgeting. And they did it where the Spanish language was the primary language the meeting was held in, and then translated into English. That was highly successful from my point of view. Did you receive comments encouraging that from anybody?
We have not received that specific comment, but we do have a strategy to conduct those type of meetings based on location or interest in a primary language such as that, and offer translation such as English or a different language. So we do have that strategy.
Okay.
That may be more appropriate for a specific community engagement rather than a tri-county region-wide, but it's definitely one of the strategies that we'd like to incorporate as appropriate for.
So it'll be in this document as a strategy?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, questions, comments? I'll start with Glenn.
A little more clarification on online and visualization outreach strategies. Just curious on what they are.
They're different ones. We're required to use, statute requires us to use as much mapping and charts and visualization, not to get tied in too much when we're talking about our projects with planner speak or engineer speak, try to use graphics in a way. And so as one of our strategies that meets that is to really try in our outreach materials, whether it be a PowerPoint or a flyer or a board at an in-person meeting, we really try to provide that visually. People tend to, I am more a visual person, so if I can see things, I can work things out rather than, reading texts and paragraphs. And then we also try to make those, we're required to make those ADA compliant when we put them online. And so people who may be visually impaired can also read alternative text about the graphic. And so we try to make sure all of that is available both online and if we do it in person with graphics. And so sometimes it's a struggle because, we have really complicated things that we talk about, but we try to make sure there's always a visual component to when we actually conduct our outreach.
Sounds like a very good strategy.
Any other board members? Before I open up the public meeting. Okay. At this time, I'll open the public meeting for the draft 2023 public participation plan. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? There are no members within the chambers. Is there any members on Zoom? Any public members like to speak on this item for the public hearing? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'll bring this back to board. Let's see, what was the action? Any further comments or questions from the board members before I close this item? None. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to item number 8, receive reports from our transportation providers. We'll start with Caltrans.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brandy Ryder. I'm the new Deputy Division Chief over our Division of Transportation Planning and Local Assistance. I have a couple of announcements. The first one, you've probably recently seen a press release go out about lowering the speed limit between San Miguel in San Luis Obispo County to King City. So the original speed limit in this segment of Highway 101 was 70 miles per hour, and it's being reduced down to 65 miles per hour. Those signs will start to be revised this Friday, starting this Friday. This is based on an evaluation that was done between Caltrans and CHP, and in particular, the CHP have reported higher incidences of elevated speeds, with 71% of the folks being ticketed for over 100 miles an hour. So this was something that we did based on a policy that we have to improve safety within the corridor. And so this policy was adopted in February of 2022. And so this segment of highway is going to be seen as speed change.
Can I ask a question on that? So when that policy was adopted, how does the public participation portion of that happen?
Well,
I didn't hear anything about that area.
I don't know how the I don't know if there is an actual public participation piece to it. There's an evaluation done by Caltrans Engineering to go out and do speed surveys. And they analyze the corridor from a standpoint of, does it make sense based on accident history? And then working with the CHP and their information. But I can get back to you on if there was an actual public participation.
And if the board will just give me a moment. The reason I bring this up, so I am the mayor of King City. 5 miles an hour is not going to change anything, but actually that 5 miles was probably more beneficial to most travelers between that stretch of road. As you probably know, it's one of the most least congested roads probably in California, and definitely on the Central Coast. While there are those at speed, it is also known by many who travel through there that CHP actively monitors that for tickets. It'll do call to speed trap. They're ticketing. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I think this is the very wrong move to change these speed limits right now. You're not going to change anybody's habits. And all it's going to do is maybe increase the number of tickets. The 100-mile-an-hour over, those folks, they're going to do that regardless it's 65 or 70. So please pass on to your uppers. This was a stupid move. It should be left the same. Everybody is used to that, and it's not gonna change anything. But, yeah, go to Chris.
So I'll concur. It's been a joke in South County in our conversations, especially even over the line with our colleagues in SLO County. We've just kind of been laughing about it and saying, what are they thinking? You know, it's a stretch where you can easily put it in cruise at 75, 80, not tap your brakes that entire stretch. It feels like a gimmick to get more ticket money revenue for locals. I drive that stretch routinely at least a couple times a week as my district goes all the way down to the SLO County line. And I never tap my brake in that entire stretch. And all I ever see is CHP, and we never have issues. Don't see any but no accidents, no breakdowns in that stretch. It's just, it feels really silly. But again, it's just kind of a joke in South County lately, and between us and SLO County, we can't understand why it's being done. We feel like we're not in control on this one, and so I guess there'll be a lot of extra signs out there.
I really, it should have been put on pause before you reached out to the communities and the elected officials from those areas, especially where you have a CHP base in King City as well. This is the first time hearing of this.
Well, understood. I'll definitely bring that back.
And it really should be put on pause, but we had.
So I just have one question. What happened to the 85th percentile formula in the accident warrants that usually precede a determination to lower the speeds? 85th percentile being 85th percent of the public travels at this speed. Sounds to me like the 85th percent of those about 75. Where did happen to that formula?
So I'll have to go back and ask those questions specifically.
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
accident warrants. I didn't hear that there were accident warrants out there with just.
And thank you for bringing that up. Our city just had to go through that whole process so we could enforce our inner city traffic signs. And the 85 percentile, we actually had to raise some of our in city from 25 to 30 because of that. So I would imagine they did not do that study.
No. And I will say that there was recent policy from a safe, a lot of our policies moving towards, what we can do on, moving more towards is net zero. from fatalities on the safety side. And so some of our policies may have changed to that. But I'll definitely go back and, figure out what that process is, what was done, and then share that with you all.
I have been following what's going on at the state where they said, okay, we're gonna put 80%. But to say the traffic warrants aren't there is really concerned that, you understand, okay, we're gonna reduce the price speeds because it's unsafe, even though the public's traveling at that rate. But I don't hear that here.
No, and there's no data to support that. We should actually, and I'm sorry, board, this is really, a lot of our residents and a lot of people that travel through our communities are gonna be directly affected by this. We should have the ability, and we should be able to get that provided immediately, and for us to appeal this decision, to put a halt to this decision before they can provide us with the documentation that they actually went through the studies that are necessary, that we're all being treated the same way when it comes to speed limits. So I'm hopefully by the end of the day that we can receive either the contact information for who we need to speak to register our complaints. Because for us, the first time hearing of this is really, especially the smaller cities, this is wrong. You're directly impacting the people that travel through our communities. And traffic accidents down there are non-existent. Where the traffic accidents are, south of 101 from Salinas. And that's where the money needs to be spent, not on changing signs. Every dollar spent on the changing of a sign should be spent on south of 101 to make it safer, because that's where all the accidents are. Sorry.
Mic drop.
It's true. Wendy?
Yeah, Brittany, you get to be the messenger today and here. Thank you for taking our feedback. And I say this as someone who, I got my own ticket that was, on that stretch of road many years ago, but also a huge fan of our Vision Zero. And I think that it's an honorable goal to have. But when we talk about Vision Zero, and we talk about that particular stretch of road, which is straight, if we want to reduce speeds, it's not going to be with a sign, it's going to be with some other strategy that allows for that to happen. So I would just concur with my colleagues. I think if we could maybe get more information about what the process was, because the outcome of this is really going to be that a lot of our residents end up with really expensive tickets that they can't afford to pay, and then increased insurance rates that they spend the next 10 years paying down because they, we're going with the speed of traffic along a stretch of road that's straight, and we're all used to driving it that way. So I just think, to be thoughtful about all of those things, there are some, I think, additional considerations for this particular section. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, just because we also went through the 85 percentile adjustment to our speed limits, and our chief very clearly said in some of our roads, we wanted to reduce speeds in the city, but he said those tickets weren't enforceable if it wasn't on that rule. So does the same thing apply to that? People will be given tickets and then.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and answer that question.
Yeah, I would appreciate a follow-up if it's different. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And I would just add to the chorus here, but that stretch has always been historic for years, right? And the fact that all of a sudden it's being lowered, it makes it even more so. And everyone driving through there, this is always a targeted area for people traveling through the highway. So I agree with all everything that's been said.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
almost afraid to do my second announcement. So my second announcement is on a different front. It's actually Caltrans is currently installing our fallen highway worker memorial signs throughout our district. So at all of our maintenance stations, so at our Salinas maintenance station, as well as all of our rest areas, we're going to be installing these memorial signs. And so the very first one went up in Santa Cruz, at one of our Santa Cruz maintenance stations, and there's one being installed at the Shannon Roadside Rest right now on Highway 46. These memorial signs were designed and manufactured and installed in all of our 12 districts throughout the state to recognize the 191 highway workers who have been killed on the job since 1921. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, highway construction and maintenance workers is one of the most hazardous occupations in the United States. In 2021, more than 9,500 work zone collisions occurred, resulting in an estimated 2,971 injuries and 73 fatalities. So if you have a chance and you stop by one of our rest areas as they open, so I know a couple of them are closed, and then those that are open and our maintenance stations, these highway worker memorial signs are a really great, wonderful thing. Our highway workers really appreciate them. Our emergency personnel appreciate them. And I think it's a really good way to inform the public of the importance of being safe on the roadways and in construction. So with that, I'll conclude my couple of announcements and open the floor if anybody has any specific questions.
Chris?
Just a couple comments. I get there's two sides to the coin, so I want to give some appreciation. The first is, I understand that the southbound rest stop between King City and Paso is reopening soon after the full remodel. So after almost 3 years of closure, we greatly appreciate that. And so I want to commend you for getting that done. And the other is traffic in the last week has been a pain going up and down the Salinas Valley because of the off ramps being repaved. But almost everyone in the community has said, yes, it's a pain in the neck, but at the same time, they look beautiful and they ride really smooth as soon as your guys are done with them. So they're doing an incredible job and we look forward to getting those striped. But big picture, they're a massive improvement because before when you took them, you kind of gritted your teeth and waited to see if there was a pothole as you took that exit. But now they look incredible and they feel very smooth. So thank you for all the work going into
Now he's being nice.
Yeah, I just had a general comment. I read in the news that earlier this month, Caltrain actually has funded the nation's first battery-equipped electric train, and it's running from San Jose to Gilroy. And I'm hoping that similar endeavors can be made from Gilroy to Salinas as we drive towards.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you so much, and you will provide the information we requested earlier. All right. Next is Monterey Peninsula Airport.
No one from the airport's been assigned to TAMC yet.
All right, Monterey Salinas Transit.
Thank you. Just wanted to announce that this week, line 25 from Salinas Transit Center to Cal State University Monterey Bay kicked off with the start of the new semester with full loads. As a matter of fact, many MST buses are experiencing standing room only loads during our peak periods. Since the implementation of the Better Bus Network last December, monthly ridership has increased 26% over the previous year time period. So just like traffic, you've all experienced, traffic is pretty heavy. The loads on MST are pretty heavy and we're adjusting accordingly, adding buses where standing room loads are the greatest. Also, we're noting on September 26th, 1973, where were you? I was in Detroit as maybe a middle schooler or elementary school student. The first Monterey Peninsula Transit Joint Powers Agency bus went into service, replacing the then bankrupt Bay Rapid Transit. So on September 1st of this year, we're going to start kicking off the celebration of our 50-year golden anniversary of this event, performing passenger giveaways at our major transit centers and an employee event and lunch for our employees, and also guests that include all your TAMC board members and staff are invited at our division at Monterey, division at 1 Ryan Ranch Road. We've conducted video interviews with community members who over the past 50 years who have depended on MST for their mobility needs, and we'll be releasing those out on our social media channels. Some of those community members now include current city council members, current city mayors, the current Caltrans director, Tony DeFaris. I ran into him and he told me about how he depended on transit growing up in Pacific Grove to get to his job at Del Monte Center, and our own Congressman Jimmy Panetta, who used to use the line 24 to get to work when he was a teenager from Carmel Valley to Monterey. So we'll be sharing that on our social media channels, and should be interesting and entertaining to listen to the reminiscing over that. Labor Day weekend will mark the end of our MST trolley season in Monterey to Cannery Row. Is very well utilized this summer as tourism seems to be pretty back to pre-COVID levels, at least from what I can see. October 30th marks the return of a direct connection from Salinas to Gilroy with our new Line 59, which is a partnership with the Santa Clara BTA and Caltrans funding that, providing 4 round trips each weekday to make time connections to Caltrain and BTA buses so that morning commuters from Salinas can get to a job by 8 a.m. in downtown San Jose. Finally, with regard to the SURF bus rapid transit and busway project, MST received notice in late July that Keep Fort Ord Wild and the Open Monterey project was granted their request for dismissal of their lawsuit against the project. With that action taken and the action taken previously in the year by the owners of the Sand City Eco Resort to dismiss their lawsuit, we're now free of any legal cases against this project. And we've submitted our complete application to the Coastal Commission for a permit and are going through that process. It's about 500 pages if you care to read it. And we're also working, that's for the portion of the project that's within the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction. And then we're also have project permits pending with the cities of Marina and Sand City for those portions that fall within their local coastal plan jurisdictions. So that's what's happening at MST.
Thank you, Carl. I didn't know our congressman used it for work. I thought it was more for going fishing, but.
No, that was Congressman Farr. He used to take
Okay.
it for fishing. Congressman Panetta will tell you that he used to hitchhike, and then when his parents were told by a neighbor that they saw him hitchhiking, he was very strongly encouraged to get an MST pass by Sylvia.
All right, any questions? Now we'll go to the Monterey Bay Air Resource District. Rich?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few announcements. We're currently working on reviewing our AB 2766 grant applications. These are grants that are made available to public entities. We've got a number of interesting projects from roundabouts to traffic signal synchronization projects. So those announcements of award winners will be made in October. This is the first time this has happened so quickly. Our electric vehicle incentive program is exhausted, pun intended. So we've had $350,000 at July 1st, and that's all gone. So we've probably funded, it's encumbered, I should say, we've funded probably the replacement of close to 200 electric vehicles within our 3-county region. Also, our plug-in Monterey Bay program, we're currently got an RFP out to get another installer for infrastructure. So we've had one installer the past number of years that has been going around and putting in new installations for electric vehicle charging. So we have a go-to contractor that at a moment's notice, if they're ready to go, we can give this contractor the information and they can go ahead and build the project. So we've been very successful at getting infrastructure out there for electric vehicles. And then to follow up on what Supervisor Lopez mentioned about the rest stop, we're very excited. We've been very, not to really crumb on Caltrans, but we've been very frustrated since we funded the tune of a couple $1 million solar powered electric vehicle charging stations on both sides of the highway at Camp Roberts. Those have effectively been stranded these last 3 years. And we're hoping that the units are not in complete disarray. We looked into actually trucking them out, but we just paid an additional couple $100,000 to have them hooked up to electricity through trenching operations. So this is a really necessary stopgap between South County and the rest of San Luis Obispo. So having these stations up and running is really important. And we just want to make sure that we're getting good use out of the money spent to install those. And they were some of the first solar charging stations in the nation. So I think now with the electricity that's being supplied to them, as well as the solar power, they should be of really good use to folks traveling at slower speeds along a highway. That concludes my remarks. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any members, any comments or questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Stedman. Quick question. Do you think this 350,000 will be available and will be more in the future years as we move forward?
We certainly hope so. We may be able to find some additional funding. I think everybody's going to be reviewing their incentive programs relative to electric vehicles because you know, the state has a program. We have 3CE, which has a program in our jurisdiction. And we just recently heard about an individual that claimed he spent only $18,000 buying a new Model 3 using all the incentives available. So the question is, you know, where's the best bang for the buck? So we'll be reevaluating that, but we'll be bringing recommendations to our board. We also have another pot of money for electric bicycles. We're currently have a grant out that's available to low-income individuals. That's not going that well, so we may try to move some of those dollars into our electric vehicle program. But we're trying to balance not only what the right incentive amount is, but also how much we should put into the infrastructure as well, because that's also a need. Not only people need cars, once they get the cars, they need a place to charge. So
Yeah, I read through, sorry to interrupt, but I read through an AMBAG report that the county needs about 8,000 plus kind of charging stations. I think hopefully we'll get more for infrastructure because that would be paramount.
yeah, it probably won't happen in this next few years, but we're also working with AMBAG now, and they're looking at some planning operations to determine the best fit for charging stations in our area. I should say that our approach has been different. If you've got a shovel-ready project, we'll give you the funding to install the charging station because, for instance, like 3CE is funded or obligated a lot of funds to build charging stations, but they have to go through lengthy permit processes. And in many cases, there's no electricity available at those sites that seem to be optimal. So that strands those dollars. So we're moving forward with trying to get the low-hanging fruit. And you know, we're probably, I would hesitate, probably like 20 charging stations a year. So it's going to make a dent, but not that big of one.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 9, reports on meetings attended by board members at Transportation Agency expense. Anyone? All right, I have a couple to get logged in. CalCog meeting in Riverside in May, Capital Rail Conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in June, Coast Rail conferences, one was at San Luis, and then via Zoom did not expense, so those are it. Move on to Executive Director's report.
All right, thank you. On your dais, there's a flyer notice for Salinas sidewalk art, call for art. And this is a project where we are working with the city of Salinas on a Clean California grant. And this is specifically for the artwork that will be used. It will be produced in thermoplastic that will last 7 times longer than paint on the sidewalks for safety improvements. And anyone in Monterey County can apply to be one of the artists selected, and with preference to residents of Salinas and East Salinas. So the deadline for that is September 15th. In Soledad, there will be a pop-up on Oak Street south to 101 interchange, where there will be a pop-up as a temporary installation for a transportation project. This will convert a shoulder into a buffered separated bike lane from September 8th through October 6th. And that's part of our Safe Route to School program work down in the Salinas Valley communities. We are looking for 2 candidates, a representative and an alternate, as our youth representatives to the Measure X Citizen Oversight Committee. Traditionally, this has been a college student age person. So if anyone has a candidate for those positions, please let Teresa know. Last week, we were occasionally things happen very quick and we have to react. Early last week, we received notice that $2 million that we'd set aside in COVID relief funds for the Castroville Improvement Program project
that Caltrans is doing as part of a SHOP-funded project was not going to be needed. They're going to be able to do the project without those funds. We needed to take action to have request them to be reprogrammed by the California Transportation Commission. We had to submit that by Friday. So we went ahead and requested that those $2 million got shifted to the Salinas Rail Extension to Salinas project. We know we have funding needs in that project, and we also have flexibility with other fund sources that are currently programmed. So that was an opportunity to continue funding on that project, but also, if needed, we can bring it back to the board for further discussion and decision later. So that was our most flexible option. So we went ahead and took that action to meet the Friday deadline. Wanted to announce, in case you hadn't heard, that we have received $1 million state appropriation for the State Route 1 Elkhorn Slough climate adaptation efforts that we're going to be starting up. And I want to acknowledge Heather Adamson. She's was the lead for the AMBEG study that kicked this off, looking at the future risk of sea level rise and impacts on Highway 1 through Elkhorn Slough, and also on the rail line through Elkhorn Slough. So we, Assemblymember Addison secured $1 million of state funds for that, and we are working with Caltrans. We submitted last Friday a federal Protect grant for $2.25 million to prepare what's called a planning and environmental linkages study, which is essentially a really comprehensive collaborative effort to get consensus on what we'll do in that area, and then work on the project initiation documents for future projects to get them teed up for future Caltrans work. So that's exciting to get the grant, and then we're pursuing additional funds to start work in that area. We also received news that U.S. Senator Padilla included $1.8 million for Pajaro G12 corridor to match the county highway safety improvement grant. He included that in the Senate's version of the Transportation Appropriations Bill. So we'll find out as that winds through the federal process, and if it makes it through the coordination with the Senate and the House bills, whether we get an appropriation. But of course, it's really important. It's a great step to have that included. So we're excited to see that. Yesterday afternoon, I sent the board an email asking for your help if you're meeting with any of your state representatives to please talk about the US 101 South of Salinas project. There's really limited opportunity to secure some additional funding for that. So please let me know if you have any meetings and need additional assistance when talking about that. It's very shooting for the moon opportunity for funding, but of course, if you don't try, you don't get it. And then finally, I want to close that the California Transportation Commission adopted their agendas for meetings next year. And in June of 2024, we will be co-hosting a meeting with AMBEG and others to host the California Transportation Commission here in Monterey County. So that's a really good opportunity for us to highlight our projects. It's nice that it's right in front of the next cycle of state SB1 grants that we'll be putting together applications for the Highway 68 corridor and hopefully for the US 101 Salinas project. So looking forward to that opportunity, and we'll have a lot to discuss about coordinating and arranging that.
What month will that be in?
That'll be June, and it'll be June 27th and 28th.
I want to get as many ag trucks as I can out on that stretch, so right when they're going through.
So traditionally, there's a tour of projects that's coordinated with those meetings, so we'll set that up. So they can.
Well, let's just hope they don't all blow out their axles when they're driving on the potholes of Carmel Valley Road.
And with that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments?
Somebody just commented, Todd, I do appreciate the reprogramming of the $2 million into the rail project in Salinas. Also the $1 million for the Route 1 in the Castroville area. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's really appropriate. And also, I think that with PD is good enough to take a lead on that 1.8 million. I would hope Lofgren and Panetta have support in there. So we need to make sure they're there because the ball was dropped a little bit there. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Item 11, is there any announcements or comments from any of the agency board members?
Just a couple questions. Could you send out an email about the youth seat on the oversight board? I have a student that I think might be interested.
Okay.
So if you send that to us, we can forward that along. And then to Carl, we were talking about like taking the I used to take the MST bus home from 4th and 5th grade from Monte Vista, like to the transit center, and they used to have a hot dog stand there. And as you were talking, I was like, oh my God, like I totally forgot it all. Anyway, it was, I would never put my kid on the bus. I think like just question like all the choices my mom made as a child with us. But anyway.
We don't trust you. I'll just say that my kids took the bus every day from middle school through college. So.
It was great. And now I'm like, maybe I should go put my kid on the bus. I don't really
It's
safe,
very
but
safe.
carpool. So yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, I have a ton of memories that are all now flooding back from that period of time. And then I just wanted to elaborate on the Air District e-bike program, just to make sure everyone knows that we do continue to have funding available. And we're just 2 months into the program, so we've got time for it to be successful. But it's a $500 rebate. It's only available to low-income residents. And so we do need your help to make sure that residents know that they have the opportunity to get a pretty significant, it's potentially 50% of the cost of an e-bike. So for folks that don't have access to a car or need an e-bike to extend their MST travel range, it's a great option. And I would love to make sure that it gets out to all of our residents who would be interested. So yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to report on what we discussed at our last rail committee, which is trying to set up our first ever meeting with the Regional Transportation Commission of Santa Cruz County to have a joint meeting in Watsonville, perhaps a joint site visit to Pajaro, because our two agencies, even though we know our futures are interconnected by rail, we just haven't had that meeting. And so I think our staff we're trying to set that up, but I think it's an informal one so that we can kind of get on the same page and try to find some common goals. But considering that the Pajaro train station got the 2.4 million for the environmental review, that we have some resources coming in to do that work. But I think this is another piece that's needed so we could kind of have a game plan and have a roadmap. Our two agencies working collaboratively. We have been doing that. Our county and Santa Cruz County, our agencies have been supporting each other in pursuing grant monies. We write support letters for their grants. They do the same for us. I'm looking forward to having that meeting, hopefully next month or whenever it's possible with them.
Mr. Chair, if I might just speak to that. Todd and I were over there last Friday with the Transportation Agency for Santa Cruz County meeting with Coast Rail Coordinating Council. That project came up and it was very clear that they would like to do the same thing you just selected. So it's very positive. I was just real clear that what's good for the Transportation Agency of Santa Cruz County rail-wise is also real good for us. And there was a lot of discussion about the Pajaro station. So that meeting would be most appropriate. Very good meeting, I thought.
All right. Nothing else. With that, we'll adjourn this meeting at 10:30 a.m. Thank you, everyone. Very productive.
Hold on, Mr. Chair.
My right.